Hello, my name is Brandon and this is Mandy Watson. We have 5 beautiful children and we've been part of Victory for 15 years now. Just wanted to share a story of how we were in a very tight situation with debt and how God brought us out of it. 4 years ago I was running my own business. I had run the business for about 6 years and the business had accumulated over 200,000 Rand worth of debt. And then we had felt God called us into ministry, which was Surf Masters at the time, part of the Victory Gap Year, which we are part of right now. And leaving the business with 200,000 Rand debt was quite a struggle for me. I didn't want to be stuck with that type of debt. And I just prayed and felt God say that He was going to release us from that. There's a scripture in Jeremiah 31 that speaks of how God says, I will free you from the Babylonian bully. And so we really took that scripture as our own, meaning the Babylonian bully, meaning like financial strain or financial oppression. We really just felt God was going to free us from that. And we just kept trusting. We took that word and we kept declaring it over and over our lives and just really trusted God. And slowly, as we were faithful with little parts of our debt, we just saw how God would radically open doors for us to pay our debt off. We had one experience where a friend of mine came with 14,000 rands to help us pay off the debt. He didn't know that I was trying to pay debt off. He just felt God tell him to give us this money, and he'd been saving it for a year. And so it was just a radical way of how God helped us get out of that debt.
I think from my side, going back to the time when we were just finishing up with our business and going into a new season of ministry. Obviously, before we knew that we were going into ministry, I just felt like we were in this endless pit, and 200,000 Rand may not sound like a lot to most people, but for us, it just felt, especially for me, being a mom and a wife, I just felt like it was this dark pit, endless pit that we would never get out of, and it just felt like such a hopeless situation. I even remember just climbing into bed one weekend and just literally sleeping the whole weekend, because that's how I deal with stress. And I realized that I cannot wallow in the self-pity, and it's not going to make the situation any better. And I just gathered some strength and decided I would just get into the Word. And so I started reading I just started getting into the Word, and then one of the scriptures that just jumps off the page in Jeremiah that says, it's a new day, I'm going to turn things around for you and for your family. You'll enjoy the fruit of your labors again. It's a season of new wine and new oil. And the scripture was just speaking to me. And then those words that came through, like Brandon mentioned earlier, I will free you from the Babylonian bully. And I got something just sparked in my heart, and I just got super excited, jumped out of bed, ran downstairs, said, Brandon, you got to see the scripture that God's just given us. He's going to free us from debt. There's hope. We're going to get out of this thing. This is not His plan for our lives. He's planned for us to be generous and a channel of release to help other people with finances, and just be an example to other families that we are not called to walk in debt, but called to walk free. Because at the time, God was also speaking to me about financial freedom, and He said to me, financial freedom is the freedom from the fear of lack. And that hit me so hard, but I just realized that if we don't understand that He is our source, we will fear lack, and we will from day to day live in stress and get into debt and things like that, because we try to make our own plan. And I just think it's so vital that people get that understanding that He is our source, not our jobs, not our salaries, nothing that we can do. So I think a lot of people also are too embarrassed to say that they're in debt, and they keep it to themselves and then try to work that thing out on their own. And I think it's important to be vulnerable enough to actually say where you're at with the people that you trust and with the people that God's put around you. The time when we were in debt, before things started to turn around for us, there were times where we didn't have food in the house, and as a mom that was quite tough. And I remember one day just standing in the kitchen and realizing that I've only got some rice in the cupboard. I was just asking myself, what am I going to give my children to eat tonight? What am I going to put on the table? God, you're going to have to come through for us. And almost wanting to go into self-pity and just wallow in that thing and say, oh God, why don't you supply for us? And I just felt God very clearly say to me, I want you to just thank me for your meal tonight. Just worship me and give thanks as if there was going to be an amazing meal on the table. So I actually did like a little dance and just started worshiping and thanking and changed my mind, changed my heart, and just like gave thanks for the meal. And I actually turned around in the process of that little dance, and our kitchen window looked up the driveway and I saw a car pull up at the gate, and one of our friends actually got out of the car and came walking down the driveway and he had 2 packets in his hands, and he didn't know that we didn't have food that night, but he comes walking into the kitchen with this like lamb, like 2 big bags of lamb. So we had lamb to eat that night, and I just think God has such a sense of humor that sometimes we think that we've that we've got nothing and we just wallow in that thing, and then he comes along and just spoils us and prepares a feast for us. And yeah, that's his heart towards us. He's a good father, and we just need to be thankful because he's the one who supplies our needs. So.
Yeah, and just being faithful with paying off the different debts that we owed. It took us about 2 years, and God was faithful to help us get out of that 200,000 rand debt within 2 years, which was just such a miracle.
Yeah, just paying off bit by bit, being faithful with the little bits instead of going out and buying a couch, or when a bit of extra money comes in, just being faithful to pay off